take a look at the minutes. If anyone has had a chance to review those, any questions or comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman. All right, all in favor of approving the minutes from our last meeting, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, our minutes are accepted from the last meeting. On to item number 3 already. We have the bills for July and August. John, would you like to give us a recap of anything on there?
Sure, Mr. President. Looking at the bills, there is one blank on here towards the very top, which is their Levander, Gill, and Miller bill, which was $4,261.50. I don't know why that one didn't show up on there. That was for a variety of projects related to Schoolhouse Square, the Quill, the TIF district that was established there, as well as the Campbell-Knutson, or excuse me, the Seward building as well. So a lot of that, the legal fees associated with these projects are covered under escrow fees.
All right, thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions regarding the bills for the last month or so? All right, if there are no questions, we will entertain a motion. Commissioner Vaughn, we have a second? Yes, thank you. All right, all those in favor of accepting the bills for July, August, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? You have accepted the bills. All right, we're moving on to item 4, which is the business for this evening. It looks like we will be discussing adopting Resolution 2021-13. John, do you want to give us some background on that?
Absolutely, Mr. President. Exciting project we have coming forward here with the redevelopment of the former UBC property located near Bailey Street, 3rd and 4th Street. This is a property that the HRA purchased quite some time ago in the hopes of redevelopment. And we've been using it for storage purposes over the years with a desire to have something more out of it. Eric Moss was able to make some contacts, found Stencil Group, who was very interested in developing the site. They've came forward with a concept plan as well for development, which is great, 85 units of residential housing on the site. It would include not only the UBC site to the north, which is that northern cold storage building, but they're also acquiring a home, privately owned home to the west to expand the property a little bit more. So associated with that, there's a couple of items for your consideration tonight. One, we're going to be selling the land, and any time that we sell land, we need to hold a public hearing to get comment on that. So that'll be the first portion of action tonight. The second of which is a resolution to authorize signature of the purchase and development agreement. Within your packet is the purchase and development agreement, which establishes the terms for sale of the property. And some things to highlight on there, the closing date would be on or before April 1st of next year. There'd be $10,000 of earnest money placed into escrow by the developer. There would be a purchase price sale of that of $175,000. So we, as HEDRA, would receive that $175,000 in proceeds for the block. So that could be used for other redevelopment projects. Contingency period of 180 days. The city will remove structures as part of that contingency period, and we would need to have the structures down by March 19th. We are using those structures presently, and we're already meeting with the folks that are using those to find alternate uses, areas that we can have storage so that we can meet that March 19th deadline. And the developer would submit construction plans by January 10th of 22. In speaking with the developer, it sounds like he plans to submit his land use applications sometime in October to run through November and December of this year. So that's the actions that we have here tonight. The developer had planned to join us via Zoom, but that isn't working tonight. I will give him a call, put him on speakerphone in a minute here. But officially, we have a public hearing to hold at this point. So, Mr. Chairman, you can open the meeting open the public hearing at that time, or I can stand for any questions. Thank you.
All right, does anyone have any questions for John Goodwin? Yes, Mark.
Thank you, thank you, Chair. John, at one time, I think, did this developer talk about asking for a TIF in this area?
Yeah, yes, that's one thing, the developer is likely to ask for TIF in this area.
So that will come later, though.
Okay, yeah, I'm Mr., here's 1 second. Nate, is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, this is so difficult.
Yeah,
I appreciate you guys working with me.
And not a problem at all here. We're just going through some questions and answers right now from the commissioners. There was a question asked about future TIF for the project, and any request that you might have. Nate, is that anything you can address at the moment?
Yeah, pretty early in the process, but we're still evaluating a couple different options. We're pretty set on the structure of the building and the quality of building and what we're doing. It's kind of everything's mimicked after the project we did in Northfield. We definitely do have some gap needs on the TIF side. Our goal, kind of with the newly adjusted schedule for being able to get on the property and start the project itself, I would say that our goal is to work through that TIF process in line with the schedule that we sent yesterday, John, to where kind of the October submission, November, December meetings to kind of have all of the TIF funding request done kind of around year end, and then proceed with the project in that April timeframe.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Nate.
Yep.
All right, does anyone else have any questions here on the commission? All right, seeing none, I believe we are ready to open the public hearing portion of the potential adoption of Resolution 2021-13. I will open that hearing now. All right, I don't believe we're going to have any comments this evening. We need a motion to close this, I believe.
Mr. Chairman, you can close the meeting, or
All right,
close
very
the
good.
public hearing, I should say.
All right, as we have no comments here this evening regarding the adoption of 2021-13, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing at this point. All right. That being said, we can now consider the adoption of that resolution. We have a motion? Yes, thank you, Commissioner.
I'll make a motion then to approve resolution number 2021-13.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. All right, everyone. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 2021-13 to authorize the signature of the purchase and development agreement with NJS Development LLC Stencil Group, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion has carried. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much, HEDRA. Ostensibly just approved the authorization of the resolution. I'm not sure if you heard the audio, so we're through with that portion of the project. What we'll do with this is we have a similar action necessary by our city council. We'll be placing that on their agenda on September 20th. So Nate, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. I really appreciate your flexibility and appreciate the opportunity to work in the community.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right, that concludes our audio portion of the meeting tonight, I guess, so.
All right, our technological advancement.
Yes.
All right, it looks like we are on to item B this evening, the potential 2022 HEDRA budget resolution authorizing the 2022 economic development levy.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. We've looked at our budget over the last few meetings. We wanted to make sure that the budget matched our strategic plan goals and initiatives. And so The HEDRA levy that's before us tonight is a portion of that funding mechanism. The budget that we use as HEDRA comes partly from this HRA tax levy and partly from the general tax levy of the city. The tax levy rules by the state allow for a maximum tax levy which would yield about $413,820. So that is what we are asking for tonight and for you to authorize. We had City Council take a similar action on their meeting on September 7th for the similar amount, and it fits within the council's budget priorities as well. So we're looking for tonight is a motion to adopt Resolution 2014, adopting the proposed 2022 HRA tax levy. Thanks.
Thank you, John. Do either of our council members have any comments from your meeting, the city council regarding this? No? Yes.
I just have one question, John. Again, the education of me. Has our levy been, has that been a consistent levy that we've done for years, or is it more or less same?
Commission member, the levy amount that we've levied, the percentage amount, is the same that we've levied since the inception of HEDRA here. So that has not changed. The value of property can go up and down on that one, but the yield is there.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Does anyone else have any comments or questions? Yes.
John, on this community development department, or your 2020 budget, it has a price for like $70,000 for removing of the UBC development, UBC lumber redevelopment. So in that process, when do we pay that out? I'm just a little confused on that it seemed like they're overlapped a little bit, that we're going to remove it prior to that sale happening.
It is, and the interesting thing is it was an earlier number we put in there, thinking that the demolition of that building, the removal of that building would be a net cost to us. In looking at the markets right now for steel and potentially for buildings, it may not be. It may be something in which we would receive most of the money that we would need to clean up to remove it as payment from someone else to remove it from the site. So I don't know if that's even going to be necessary at this point.
No, that's good news.
All right, thank you, everyone. All right, do we have any additional comments or questions regarding this? All right, if not, we will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the HEDRA Resolution 2021-14.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, all those in favor of approving the 2022 HEDRA budget resolution for 2022, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the budget has been approved. Thank you, everyone. On to item C this evening, the Quill, Schoolhouse Square Senior Housing, amended approval and authorization. First, we have Resolution 2021-15. John, would you like to fill us in?
Sure. HEDRA members, we have a couple of remaining actions for the Quill, which is the new name of the Schoolhouse Square 90-unit senior housing complex. They're looking to close on the property on September 30th. As part of our actions earlier this year in July, we approved a resolution authorizing signature of the contract for private development. Within that contract, there was a requirement for us to execute a minimum assessment agreement for the project. Upon further discussion with our TIF bond advisor and our TIF attorney, we've concluded that the minimum assessment agreement is not necessary for this project because it's a housing TIF district. And so we removed that requirement from the agreement. Because of that removal, we thought it best to have an amended contract for private development authorized by HEDRA. The other terms within the contract that you looked at in July are unchanged at this point. One thing to note with that, within your packet, there was an old resolution which was really an authorization of the complete contract for development. In discussions with our HEDRA attorney, we've have a simplified version, which is really an amendment to your previous action before you tonight. So we're asking that to be considered, what's before you tonight, which is essentially reauthorizing the approval you did in July with the change that the minimum assessment agreement is no longer necessary. So that would be the first action within the request. The second action relates to the closing, and that's approving a couple of agreement signatures. One is a subordination agreement, which would subordinate our interest within our TIF bonds to the county and state through their low-income housing tax credits. So that is something that they require as having a secondary position and to subordinate our debt and our claims if anything was to go wrong on the project. It's a standard type of request that we have done in other cases and is something that is recommended approval from our consultants. The other one is a consent and estoppel certificate that certifies certain facts related to the financing are correct. And so we're asking for action on that resolution tonight as well. With the action on both those items, I believe that this will conclude our actions related to the Quill and that construction can start shortly. Interestingly enough, the building permit has been submitted and approved. So we're way ahead of ourselves on that one. So hopefully with the closing of the property coming up on September 30th, the hammers can start out there very shortly afterwards. So I can stand for any questions.
All right, thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions tonight? Yes, Commissioner.
So my understanding of a minimum assessment agreement is just that it requires that the land is a certain value so that the city does recoup what is necessary against the property. What is different about a housing TIF that doesn't require that?
Commissioner, remember with a housing TIF, the value is being paid directly to the developer, and the amount that is assessed by the county is going to be that amount that's going to be paid directly to the developer. We're at no risk of losing taxable value on that one. When we have a redevelopment district, we run the risk of losing value on that, so we like to instill that minimum assessment agreement. We did that with Hudson, for example, in our last amendment. With a housing TIF district, these are proceeds that are based upon performance by the developer, and the city has no risk within it.
All right, thank you, John. All right, does anyone else have any comments or questions? I would guess that we will need to approve these separately, John?
You could do both motions, a motion for the approval of both if you would like, or separately, whatever the maker chooses.
Let's see how creative our commissioners are tonight. All right, if we don't have any questions or comments, we would be ready to entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make a motion that we approve Resolution 2021-15 and 16 in one motion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Govers, thank you. All right, everyone. All those in favor of approving resolutions 2021-15 and 2021-16, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Thank you very much, everyone. We have approved both of our resolutions there. All right. Moving on to reports and information. Item 5, is that accurate?
That is correct. I think the first item we have on there is a second quarter HEDRA financial report from our senior accountant, Ashley Bertrand. That was included within your packet. I talked to Ashley today, asked her if there was anything of significance that she would like to share with the commission tonight from the report. Said, you know, the investment income is lower in 2020 than we received our investment income is much lower in 2020 with the challenges of COVID, that's a continuation of things that are going on. We haven't had the repayment revenue from other loans that have come in because we have not been charging that in 2020 and 2021. From a variance standpoint, we did some merging of accounts last year where we had a separate HRA account 404 that we merged into our 407 account, which was our economic development industrial park account. So that leads to some of the variances that you see there. So I can stand for any questions that you may have on that.
All right, thank you, John. Does anyone have any questions? All right, if not, we are ready to move on to item B then.
Yeah, moving on to our Open to Business quarterly report as well. Open to Business is involved in a few different activities. In the past, they've generally been involved in the business counseling. As you can see from the year-to-date total, there have been about 23 clients that they've served, either business or residents within Hastings, which is great. You take a look at the averages among other cities, we're in the middle to upper tier of the service that we're being provided, which is wonderful. One of the things that they're also been doing a push on is getting out in the community and presenting different programs, seminars that are out there, doing direct financing and access to capital seminars, which has been great. And then they were awarded some funding in June of about $1.8 million that they're going to be using for loans to go out. And so I haven't seen where that'll transcend into what they're able to do to supplement their activities here, but looking forward to more opportunities that they will be able to do in the future on that end. So I can stand for any questions you may have.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any questions regarding open to business? All right, thanks, John. It looks like we are ready to move on to item C, which is the WSI Sportswear project.
That's right. Little preliminary update here. We've had strong interest within the industrial park this year, and that continues. Been working on a project with WSI Sportswear for a potential relocation to the park. They would be looking to build a 20,000 to 30,000 square foot building on about 2 acres at Spiral and Enterprise. This is the same property that we had looked at earlier this year for Miller Electrical. So they are putting together their application. That'll be before us officially in October, but wanted to share the news that we do have another interested party looking to build and expand within Hastings. They would bring 10 people in and estimate to add another 10 within 5 years of construction, so that's good news for us.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, and moving on to another project we've been working on, our downtown architectural assessment. What we're looking at with this project is to be able to hire a consultant, structural engineer, to provide an assessment of structural elements of the private buildings within our downtown area. We've got about 37 buildings within the list there. Over the years, we hear from individual property owners of difficulties that they have in trying to determine, what the structural conditions are of the building, what may need to be done. Our goal in doing this is to provide an individualized assessment for each building down there. This is not a requirement for them to do anything at this point, but more information that they can use in hiring contractors or others to provide those services to make those improvements. In addition to that, within the HEDRA budget, we've allocated about $50,000 towards direct loans that could go towards that as well. We need to develop the parameters of the program of how that would work, but we want to be able to provide some funding along with the assessment to help those improvements along. So we have 2 proposals that we are actively reviewing, and we expect to make that decision and have that selection by the October HEDRA meeting.
Yes, Mark.
Thanks, Chair. John, do you know when if a business signs up for agreeing to have someone look at their place, does the information go privately, directly back to the building owner? Or is it public data because the public went out and did that? So if they were to sell their place, for example, do they have to publicly disclose that I got some structural damage over here? That was a concern I've heard, and I think it's important. I personally, if they sign up for it, I wish there was a stipulation that would just go to them. They get to hold the data. We should not know what that data is.
Commissioner, it's a very good point, and I don't have the answer to that question, but I will get that answer. I see where you're coming from, and I see where some of the comments are coming from, that could be somewhat detrimental in the sale of a building. So we will have an answer on that.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Mark. Does anyone else have any questions or comments regarding this potential program? All right, thank you, everyone. All right, we are on to item E then. I would be guessing Eric would rather cover this, but we'll leave it to you, John.
Exactly, yeah, and Eric is really instrumental in this project, from the idea to the implementation of it, and that's the Makers Alleyway Market. We were able to hold that on 2 occasions. We planned for 3, rained out on 1, and that was happening within the alley right by the downtown pavilion there. And so the first event we had about 7 vendors. The second event was rained out. The third event had, I think, about 4 altogether. We had planned 10 that had signed up, but it was one of those nights where the weather looked ominous. I don't think anything happened but a couple of sprinkles, but we didn't quite get the attendance there. However, having that event in conjunction with the concerts going on at the pavilion, I think is a good thing and something to continue on for next year. As far as things to learn and how we can make this better for next year, we did hear from some of the vendors that some of our licensing requirements here are more restrictive, so we'll be working with our clerk's office to see how we can better streamline that for next year. But I think the purpose of the Makers Alleyway was to be able to enliven the alleyway and to be able to take the people that are coming from the event and provide other business opportunities within the alleyway. Ultimately, it would be nice to see the alley enlivened so that when you take a look at those back areas of stores, that you might be able to see someone take a chance and open up a retail portion next to the river there. That's always been a desire of us. And to be able to show more activity and customers back there, I think will help that in the future. So something that we'll be evaluating more over the winter, but something I think we plan to go forward again next year.
All right, thank you, John. And thank you, Eric. I know that this was a great pet project of his, and I think it made a really great start this year.
Absolutely. And then looking at development updates, we got a few things going on around town right now, which is good. One of the things that's interesting, though, is the U.S. Census doesn't seem to recognize that at this point. You may have seen some stories about U.S. Census preliminary population numbers that have come out. The numbers that for Hastings were not much growth at all, around 18 people, I think, altogether. When I take a look and dig down deeper into their data and to the number of residential units they counted as new, it's substantially different than what I have. So I'm working on that as we speak to see if we can modify that to have it reflect what I see as growth within the city. Over the period between 2010 and 2020, we added, between censuses, we added over 470 housing units. So with a population average of probably 2.4 people per household, you're looking at nearly 1,000 people that have come in there. There were some changes within some of the group quarters that of a few hundred people that would skew into that, but I really think that that is a more accurate growth number as we will see. And hopefully we'll have some revised census figures that will reflect that. The interesting thing is 470 housing units over the last 10 years. Over the next 2 years, 620. Looking at the projects that are out there. Some of them have been approved, that's about 320, and another over 300 that are in various stages of approval at this point. Actually, this morning I did an interview, a spot for HCTV that they're going to be putting on their station, talking about housing growth. We wanted to kind of get ahead of some of these census numbers that I feel are not accurately projecting what is happening within Hastings. So within here, we've got some of the development updates. One of the new things that's interesting is the Summergate Annexation down on Red Wing Boulevard. This is on the east side of Highway 316, east of Michael Avenue, Hope Lutheran Church. So as you're coming up from Red Wing, it's the first vacant property you see on the right. 70 acres, 160 lots that are proposed for that. We had our planning committee of council do an initial review of this earlier this week. They were supportive of the project. They're going to be moving forward with their annexation and land use applications this year and hope to break ground next year on that one. So will be another 160 single-family lots added. The Luke Seward apartment building continues to move forward. That'll be going to Planning Commission on Monday night for 32 units and then moving on to council from there. We keep continuing on at the Confluence with some encapsulation repair. We continue to have conversations with Target. We hope that there's going to be some good news to report there very shortly on that. Feel confident in that there'll be some more things to report in October. KO expansion, a mini storage place at the industrial park is expanding. They're going to planning commission on Monday. And then the other various housing developments that are happening. Heritage Ridge, we had a day last week, or 2 weeks ago, that we had 14 building permits come in for single-family homes there. So they're all waiting for the streets to be completed, which should be happening in the next day or two. So they're just chomping at the bit, and you'll see a lot more building activity down there. So good things happening around the city. And I can stand for any questions related to that.
Wow. Very good. Thank you. Does anyone
Yeah.
have any questions or comments?
Okay.
All right, I think we are good with the development update then. I believe we have a potential closed-door session.
We do, Mr. Chair, and what I'd suggest at this time is to close the public meeting, adjourn the public meeting and closed-door session. And then we will go to the volunteer room down here. I think it's easier to discuss. And I'll provide a couple of updates on what's happening with the Block 28 land acquisitions.
All right, thank you, John. All right, does anyone have any comments or questions? If not, I guess we are ready to entertain a motion for this evening.
I'll motion that we close the public portion of this meeting and adjourn to the closed-door session.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Do you have a second? Do you have a second? All right, all those in favor of closing the public portion of tonight's second meeting, please signify by saying aye.